Jerry, a really disappointing number today.
Well, it's not a surprise. I talked about it on CNBC just 2 weeks ago to be prepared for low December numbers. But you have to put this in perspective. The consumer remains very, very strong. When you look at this on a 2-year trend, which is really the only way you can look at stable numbers, the peak was in October when sales were up 22% over 2 years. Well, in December, they were up 20%. That's still a lot for a 2-year trend. The issue really came down to one thing. When you looked at the numbers in micro levels, and I've seen a lot of them, it was the 2 weeks before Christmas when sales fell off sharply because of Omicron. I would not generalize about consumers based on that. There was a little pull forward in October as consumers were scared about eating goods on time, but that really wasn't it. It was the last couple of weeks before Christmas when people especially weren't going out to the bricks and mortar stores because of what was going on with the virus. That is not a long-term trend. It doesn't mean that we're going to see this kind of growth forever, by the way. There's still winners and losers, and companies that had losing strategies before the pandemic are going to start to emerge again because their losing strategies are still losing. They're not going to be successful now.
Yeah, let's pick up that thread for a moment. Explain, if you can, give some examples of who you might be talking about.
Look, department stores, it's the perfect case. There's been a lot of talk about whether they've turned around. Some of the department store stocks have had huge 1-year gains. Those are not justified. Of all segments that reported today, the biggest drop versus pre-pandemic 2019 in December, it was department stores. They're the only one that wasn't up significantly. Keep in mind, overall, I told you, retail sales were up 20% in December versus 2 years ago. Department stores were slightly negative versus their December number from 2 years ago. That dead cat bounce we've talked about before, it looks like it's already over.
That's tough news for the likes of Macy's and the rest of the complex there on the screen. But we've talked about how well Macy's has done, how their apparel business gets, the second most search traffic after Amazon's, or maybe even more, things like that. They're all trying to spin out e-commerce businesses now. Maybe. Why is it that all of a sudden what looked like it was working well earlier last year is now not looking so great?
Well, people kept comparing the numbers to last year when the stores weren't even open. So, of course, they look good. But I've told you consistently, don't believe that. And also, some people started going out more, after coronavirus appeared to be ebbing, had to buy clothes to go to work, couldn't wear the stuff from 2 years ago. So we saw a little uptick, but that's not a long-term trend. It doesn't change fundamental consumer dynamics. Young consumers don't want to shop where their grandmother shopped. On top of that, you have off-price retailers growing. You have Target and Walmart knocking it out of the park, even in apparel, growing rapidly. Fast fashion. There's a lot of places, the internet, where people are going today. They're not going to department stores anymore. I wouldn't bet on that, as I said, for a long-term trend. Bed Bath & Beyond's another one. They said, oh, look, our strategy's working. There's no way that's why they were doing well. They were doing well originally because people shifted to home goods during the pandemic. Now that that's over, you see very disappointing numbers out of Bed Bath & Beyond. If the strategy wasn't working before the pandemic, it won't work now. On the flip side, the people who were working, they're going to work even better. Who are those? We've talked about them. Walmart, Target, Costco, Amazon, TJX. What a great company that is. And I'd look at the home builders, the home supply companies. The numbers today were excellent still, by the way, for the segment that includes people like Home Depot or Lowe's. So those are going to continue to thrive. And maybe Dollar General's had a tough year. I think they're going to come back.
Okay, fair enough. What would you do with the sporting goods names? Because that feels like a secular pandemic winner that I'm not even sure what the trend was pre-pandemic. I don't even recall.
Well, there's one great company in retail there, which is Dick's. I think they're going to do fine over the long term. They've reported great numbers consistently. They'll slow down a little bit because, there is this return to work thing that's going to happen. And you can't be in a kayak while you're in the office. So they will pull back a little bit. But over the long term, they're the only one left in that space that's substantial. They're going to do great. And I'd still always believe Nike. What a great company. What a great brand. They own the intellectual property. They control their distribution. They're going to do great, too.